What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast, back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and this is the pretty much Chicago Bears. Why does Matt Nagy deserve to be fired? Why should Matt Nagy be fired tomorrow? This is week 7. The Bears just took a loss to the Bucks. An unexpected loss. I mean, I didn't go into this game, and most Bears fans didn't go into this game expecting a win. You're going up against the defending champs. You're going up against the GOAT, Tom Brady, in Tampa Bay. So it wasn't going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. But what we want to see out of the Bears, what we're, keeping an eye on a week-to-week basis, most of us are not expecting to make the playoffs this year. We're just expecting to get better, to show signs of improvement. You go back to 2017 when we drafted Mitch Trubisky and we traded up to the number 2 overall pick to draft Trubisky. That was the plan. He was supposed to be the guy. And we fired John Fox in order to bring in a guy that was supposed to get the most out of Trubisky, and that was Matt Nagy. He was the offensive guru, the offensive coordinator from the Kansas City Chiefs, from the Andy Reid tree, and Andy Reid coaching tree, and he called, he play called in the Titans playoff game, the Chiefs-Titans playoff game, in which they had a 21-3 halftime lead and blew that game in the second half. I believe the final was like 22-21 Titans. And, the signs were there. The signs were there that Matt Nagy, had his flaws. And I have this saying that there's some coordinators that become head coaches that are never meant to be head coaches. They're never going to work out. They're never going to be successful as head coaches because they're not leaders of men. They're not they're not the culture of a franchise, the culture of a locker room. It just won't work for whatever reason. You see it from a lot of the Belichick disciples trying to be Bill Belichick, and it doesn't work. I think, Matt Nagy trying to be Andy Reid or whatever he's trying to be is not working. A lot of the complaint from Matt Nagy's offense from, some of the people that I've heard and my complaints has been like trying to make this Bears offense, whether it be, because we've had, it was Mitch Trubisky and then he was struggling. And a lot of the narrative was that, Trubisky is holding Matt Nagy's offense back. And Matt Nagy said that himself. Matt Nagy said, going into the 2019 season, he said, I can't run my full offense through Mitch Trubisky. He's not there yet. He's not developed enough. He doesn't understand it enough to take my offense to its full potential. So, and he said that publicly. So he publicly threw his quarterback under the bus early on in his development, in year 2, going into year 2. Going into year 3. And between year 2 and year 3 is where you would expect to see the biggest jump. And I think from Trubisky, we saw potential in 2017, and we saw a pretty good jump in 2018. I mean, if you remember him throwing 6 touchdowns in a game against Tampa Bay. And it's funny that we've come full circle, and we're talking about a Bears-Bucks game tonight. But so he showed signs. He showed flashes of potential. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Trubisky was a finished product or that Trubisky was the man and a franchise quarterback, because he wasn't. He definitely had his flaws. But my whole issue going back to 2019 was that I saw problems outside of Mitch Trubisky. I saw problems in the game plan. I saw issues from Matt Nagy. a lot of the talk was, even from Matt Nagy and from the media, was that Trubisky can't handle it, and he's not your drop back, prototypical, throw the ball, arm talent quarterback. That's just not who he is. So in 2019, we drafted a running back, David Montgomery, out of Iowa State, who I loved in college. He was a tackle-breaking machine. He led college football in missed tackles. He was a monster, a lot of potential. And I wanted to use him a lot as a rookie. And if you go back and look at 2019 and some of the issues, some of the games, like, week 1 of 2019, we're coming off a really good season, a trip to the playoffs, a home playoff game against the Eagles. And there was signs in that Eagles game that Nagy was in over his head. But we were able to, kind of look past those things. And a lot of the blame got put on Trubisky for not scoring enough points in that playoff game. Some of the blame went to the defense for allowing a touchdown on that goal line stand late in the game. And then some praise went to Trubisky for coming through with a big-time clutch throw to Allen Robinson to get the Bears into field goal position to win that playoff game. And we all know what happened with the double doink from Cody Parkey. And then so you take that off season, and there was a lot of talk about the Bears taking the next step. If you remember, Eddie Jackson recruiting safety Clinton Dix to the Bears, after leaving Green Bay, bringing him in and signing with the Bears with the expectation of, look, I'm coming to Chicago because I want to contend for a championship. I want to win a ring. And Eddie Jackson and Clinton Dix go back to Bama, where they were teammates at Alabama. But so we have all that momentum, all that talk about taking the next step, going from having the best defense in football in 2018, going into 2019, a home game against division rival Packers in Chicago on Sunday Night Football. A lot of hype going into this game. It was actually the season opener. Yeah, it was that Thursday night season opener, the 100th season, a lot of hype. And if you remember, Matt Nagy goes into that game, strolls in wearing that hat, the George Halas hat. So he was really feeling himself going into that game. And as the offensive coach, as the play caller, as the guy who makes it all run, the Bears score a whopping 3 points in that opener against the Packers. He asked Mitch Trubisky to throw the ball 45 times, and the rookie running back David Montgomery only got 6 carries. And my beef right away, I said it that night. I did a post-game podcast. You can look it up. It's on my channel. I said that's an issue, and I was mad at at Matt Nagy's game plan. Trubisky struggled, absolutely, but this, and the build up into that game was Nagy saying that Trubisky couldn't handle his full offense. That can hurt a young quarterback's confidence, his mental, that your head coach doesn't believe in you or can't trust you. So Trubisky struggles in that game mightily. The offense struggles mightily, and the running game doesn't get established at all. And that was my big beef, was that, feed Montgomery. Look at his college resume, man. That dude can carry an offense if you feed him, if you run the offense through him. It wasn't done. And I was really upset after that. You move on to week 6 of that season against the Saints. And Trubisky's asked to throw the ball 54 times. And the leading rusher was Tariq Cohen, got 3 carries. David Montgomery got 2. And so you could see it early on in 2019 that whatever Nagy's doing, it's a very unbalanced offense. And it wasn't playing to the strengths of Trubisky, which is, if I was an offensive play caller with Mitch Trubisky in that offense, I would feed the running backs a lot. I would have 40 carries from the running backs. I would split it between them with Cohen, and Montgomery and whatever, whether you got Cordell Patterson or at that time we had, I think, Mike Davis. I would spread it out evenly. And I would not ask Trubisky to throw the ball a ton. I would use play action to keep the pass rush off of my young, inexperienced, developing quarterback. I would roll him out, get him in space. One of the underrated qualities of Mitch Trubisky's ability was to run the ball. He had the, ability to use his legs and pick up big chunk plays. And at least, the threat of him running makes the linebackers suck up, makes the linebackers respect his ability to run, come up and attack him, and that should open up some options, for some receivers to come open. And that's a very simple, you've seen the Shanahan offense, the play action rollout with what they used to do with Jay Cutler early in his career in Denver, establish the run behind whether it was Tatum Bell or Mike Bell or the different running backs they had there, Mike Anderson, guys like that, and then play action rollout. And Cutler was never the most elusive running quarterback, but he could run with the ball. And that ability to you had to defend both. So that was the flaws early on with Matt Nagy. I could see it early on, and I tried to tell people, on Twitter, and that's when I developed, a bit of my Bears following, was by complaining about Matt Nagy's offense and saying, look, it's flawed. It's not, there's issues here. And nobody wanted to hear it. Everyone said, look, Trubisky sucks. Trubisky's dumb. He can't handle the offense. The public narrative, the national narrative, ran with Nagy's comments and said Trubisky isn't smart enough to run the offense. He can't process a defense. He can't go through his reads, 1, 2, 3, and he's a one-read guy, and he sucks. So Trubisky got a lot of the blame for the Bears' struggles, and the Bears missed the playoffs in 2019. So 2020, they go and they sign Nick Foles that offseason. And this was Nagy's guy. This is who Nagy said, look, he had Bill Lazor. He had, I forget who else he had, but he had some guys in that knew Nick Foles. I mean, Nagy coached Nick Foles back in Kansas City, I believe. And Doug Peterson ran the same offense, a very similar offense to Nagy in Philly. So Foles knew the offense. And Foles was the guy that everyone said that didn't believe in Trubisky. He's like, well, Foles is going to end up being the starter. And most people said Foles is going to start week 1. And he's going to prove it right away, and he's going to take this offense off, and you're going to see Nagy's potential and Nagy's offense come to life in Nick Foles. My concerns were, the second we signed Foles, I voiced my concerns that Nick Foles is only that guy in Philly. He, for whatever reason, when he's the backup in Philly behind Carson Wentz, when he gets forced into action, comes off the bench, he seems to take off. And that's why he won Super Bowl MVP, took the Eagles to the Super Bowl, and looked as good as he did, beat the Bears in the playoffs in 2018. And he played great just to get to those playoffs that year. And but then in 2019, Foles goes to Jacksonville, gets this big contract to go to Jacksonville, and struggle. He gets hurt, first of all, but later on, he comes back from that injury and struggles so much that he got benched for Gardner Minshew. And Minshew's what, a 6th-round pick? Minshew's got his, potential, but what's Minshew doing in 2021? He's a backup. And he showed flashes, but Foles was supposed to be the guy. So when we brought Foles in 2020, I said Foles is not the same guy that he was in Philly. He's coming off getting benched by Minshew, and anytime you ask Foles to be the starter long term, ask him to start multiple games, he struggles. He hadn't started more than, I believe it was 7 games since the Rams way back in like 2015. So I had my concerns there. Anyways, Trubisky wins the start in preseason. He gets the start, and it's like, that shocked a lot of people. They're like, wow, like, I can't believe, I thought Foles was going to start week 1. A lot of the people were surprised by that. I was not. I said Trubisky's going to start. He's the better quarterback. A lot of people told me, oh, well, the Bears are just saving face here. They're giving Trubisky the benefit of the doubt. They're giving him one last shot to prove that he can be the guy. I was like, okay, we'll see. So, you start the season. Trubisky looks all right. We start 2-0. Here's the thing against the Giants. The Bears start quick and go up 10-0 on the Giants. Score 17 first half points and fail to score at all in the second half, almost blowing the game to the Daniel Jones New York Giants. And you could see a lot of the Nagy issues there. It bothered me that Trubisky was getting all the blame. And you go to week 3 against the Falcons, and Trubisky down 6 at halftime, 16-10, gets benched at halftime by Matt Nagy, and they go to Nick Foles. And I felt like it was a super short leash. I felt like it was unfair to Trubisky, and the team was winning. Regardless of how the offense looked, the team was winning, and the defense was playing hard. So we go to Nick Foles, and Foles pulls out a miracle second half comeback and kills it and beats the Falcons. And people are like, look, this is what we've been talking about. Nick Foles, such a breath of fresh air to this offense. Here come the Bears, right? We're ready to go. Let's go contend for a championship now with Nick Foles. And when I went back and watched the tape of that game, and I even saw it live, Nick Foles damn near threw 3 or 4 interceptions in that second half alone. He had a couple throws that went through defender hands and somehow got caught, somehow got dropped, interceptions. And so I was like, pump the brakes on Foles. He's not the guy you think he is. Week 4, Nick Foles gets his first start with the Bears against the Colts. And the Bears put up a whopping 11 points, get beat 19-11. Foles throws the ball 42 times, and David Montgomery only gets 10 carries. And that was me saying right there, I was like, here's Nagy doing his thing, trying to run the Chiefs offense, spread them out, Patrick Mahomes offense, gunslinger offense, not running the ball, and putting up a whopping 11 points and losing the game, most importantly. And, it's Nagy. It's been Nagy all along. You go to week 7 of that year, the Bears put up 10 points against the Rams, and Foles misses a wide-open Mooney, rookie Darnell Mooney, after he makes Jalen Ramsey look like shit, breaks him down, beats him deep, and Foles can't hit him. The issues are definitely there. The signs were there. You go to the week 10, Vikings at Bears. Nick Foles throws for 106 yards in the game, and the Bears lose 19-13. Media pressure gets on Nagy pretty much and says you got to give up play calling. I talked to former All-Pro linebacker Chad Brown about that time, and he was like, look, Nagy and the Bears offense need to figure this out. You've had success with Trubisky at times, going back to 2018, at times in 2019. Nick Foles has had success in the NFL, going back to Philly. Nagy needs to figure out some way to play to the strengths of these quarterbacks to get more out of this offense. Nagy's the offensive coach, right? He's the play caller, right? He's got to get more out of his offense. At the end of the day, you can't sit back and keep saying it's the quarterback's fault. It's the quarterback's fault, whether it's Foles or Trubisky. You got to take some of your own blame here. And Nagy's always had an unwillingness to do that. He's always pointing the finger at somebody else, at his quarterbacks, at the offensive line, at his receivers for not getting open when he's the play caller. So then let's fast forward. Bill Lazor takes over play calling from Matt Nagy, and you see the offense take a big step forward. Trubisky comes back. Foles gets hurt, so Trubisky comes back, and you see the offense take a big jump forward. You see him light up the Vikings, a bad Vikings defense. You see him light up the Texans defense, which was very bad. You see him light up the Jags defense. So, you could say, oh, well, Trubisky's taking advantage of really bad defenses. But we've seen Trubisky struggle against bad defenses in the past. So obviously Bill Lazor here was doing something to open up the offense. So it was nice to see. But then, they revert to struggling against good teams. They struggle against the Packers in Week 17, and they score 3 points throughout pretty much the entire wild card game. We somehow sneak into the playoffs, the first 7 seed ever. First year it's ever been a 7 seed gets into the playoffs in 2020. Play the Saints and score a touchdown finally in garbage time. It's like the last play of the game is a touchdown to Jimmy Graham. But it's like, what good does that do to you for you when you've scored 3 points the entire game? And I was just livid at Nagy then. I was mad that Nagy was allowed to return in 2020. I wanted to see Trubisky get an opportunity with a different head coach. And it really breathe life into what I was talking about when Bill Lazor takes over play calling and you see Trubisky's game take a big step forward. But it does revert against good teams, so it's hard to say there. Trubisky's definitely an issue. So Trubisky's not brought back in the offseason. He's allowed to go to enter free agency, and he goes and signs a backup job with the Bills. So Trubisky's old news. Let's forget about Trubisky anymore. We decided as an organization to bring back Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace for 2021. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand it. How often do you see an offensive play caller after not being able to have any success, not only with the quarterback he was hired to develop, but with the guy he brought in to replace him in Nick Foles? He struggled mightily with both. And my questions in the 2020 offseason was, what the hell? What more evidence do we need that Matt Nagy sucks? We've seen 2 quarterbacks now. It hasn't worked at all. But, I think that financially it benefited the Bears ownership to keep Pace and Nagy, especially after losing money to COVID during the 2020 season with no fans. So they decided to keep him for another year. So in March, the Bears aggressively go sign Andy Dalton to a 1-year, $10 million deal. The same Andy Dalton that went, what'd he go, 0-10, 0-9, maybe more, 0-11 in 2018, no, in 2019 with the Cincinnati Bengals and got benched in favor of Ryan Finley. And some people said, oh, well, the Bengals were tanking at that point. Well, were they tanking when they were 0-3, 0-4? Were they tanking to start the year? Andy Dalton mightily struggled that year in Cincinnati. So then he becomes a backup quarterback in Dallas. He's behind Dak Prescott, a loaded Cowboys team. Dak Prescott, when healthy, is going up and down the field, putting up massive points, on pace for 6,000 yards throwing that year in 2020 before the really nasty injury that put him out for the season. So Andy Dalton gets thrust into the starting opportunity. And I had Andy Dalton's former offensive coordinator, Hugh Jackson, on my show around that time. And I said, Hugh, you would know better than anyone. What can we expect out of Andy Dalton taking over for Dak Prescott? I know he's a backup now, but you look at this Cowboys offense, you got Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard, you got CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, all these weapons. I believe they even had Jason Witten at that time. I could be wrong, but, Michael Gallup, all these guys. I said, look, there's a lot of weapons. Can Andy Dalton play well enough to get this Cowboys team, a loaded offense, into the playoffs? And he said, absolutely, I believe he can. The Dalton that Hugh Jackson coached in Cincy was definitely good enough to take that Cowboys offense in a really bad division, mind you, and take them into the playoffs. Well, those of you that watched the 2020 season, Dalton was hit and miss for sure and struggled pretty bad at times. Even with a loaded offense, he couldn't move the ball down the field. Too many 3-and-outs, too many punts, not enough, points being scored to win big, important games to get the Cowboys into the playoffs, even as a 7th seed. So Washington football team wins the division, and Andy Dalton can't get it done as the backup, stepping in for Dak in Dallas. So then it blew my mind when the 2021 offseason in March, the Bears aggressively go and sign Andy Dalton to a 1-year, $10 million deal. And the reports were, right then and there, that the reason Andy Dalton signed with the Bears, I believe Dalton even said this, the reason he signed with the Bears was because they told him he would be the starting quarterback. And I looked around and said, what? I was flabbergasted. I said, are you kidding me? You're going to sign Dalton. You're going to give him, and let's go back. Dalton was paid $3.5 million by the Dallas Cowboys to be their backup. Maybe even $2.5 million, or maybe it was $3 million. And I said, you're going to triple Andy Dalton's 2020 salary, sign him to $10 million deal, and tell him in March that he's the starting quarterback for the Bears. This blew my mind. At the time, I had a coworker. I was doing repo, and I came into work that day, and I told him I was so down. I was so mad. I didn't have words to explain what I was feeling. I told him, I was like, bro, I feel like my dog died today. I was like, that's how I feel as a Bears fan, as someone who lives and breathes Chicago Bears football, bleeds, the Bears colors, as someone who's a diehard Bears fan. Walter Payton, Matt Forte, Jay Cutler, all the way through, Rex Grossman, Kyle Orton. I've supported this team since Craig Krenzel and Shane Matthews and rookie Brian Urlacher and Cordell Stewart days. You can't question my loyalty to this Bears organization. And all we want is a winner. All we want is to contend. All we want is to beat the effing Packers, who have owned our ass since Aaron Rodgers took over, and even going back to Brett Favre days. They've been kicking our ass around for ever since I've been a fan. And I've been so tired of it. We had a little bit of success during the Lovie Smith era. And we were winning. We were beating the Packers' ass with Rex Grossman and Kyle Orton. And, Matt Nagy can't get it done at all. He's beaten them once. I think he's 1-5 in his career against the Packers. Maybe 1-6 now. And so we signed Andy Dalton, and I couldn't be more upset. And I told people, I was like, look, if Andy Dalton's the plan, if he's the week 1 starter and the plan for the entire 2021 season, I'm not watching. I'm boycotting, and I'm getting on my podcast and telling people to boycott the Bears, because that, I can just imagine in my mind the Andy Dalton offense with Matt Nagy calling plays. And I was like, that is going to be disgusting. You thought Nick Foles was bad? Dalton and Nagy is going to be even worse. You thought Trubisky was bad? Dalton's going to be even worse. And, you had some people on Twitter saying, no, Dalton's he's a solid starting quarterback. He can still get it done. We can still go to the playoffs with Andy Dalton. I said, no way in hell. This is a 5 or 6 win team at most with Andy Dalton. So, I was really down on the Bears. On top of the fact that losing starting corner Kyle Fuller, our CB1, I was upset about that. And I felt like the $10 million given to Andy Dalton could have been spent on Kyle Fuller. And we could have never signed Andy Dalton because he's not an upgrade over Foles or Trubisky. We could have brought back Trubisky on a very little deal, kept Nick Foles on his immovable contract, and started Foles and had Trubisky as backup. Or either way, whichever way it goes. But if that's the plan, and drafted a quarterback. with those three there. It felt like a waste of $10 million to me. So on top of bringing back Nagy and Pace, I hated the Dalton signing, and I was in despair. I didn't know what to think of this organization. Then they pull a magic rabbit out of their hat. I mean, I didn't see this coming. I did this was the year that I did the most research, the most prep for the draft. I did over 100 mock drafts. I watched all of the mock drafts. The CBS one. I watched all the Daniel Jeremiah ones, the Bucky Brooks. I watched the Chris Sims one, the Mike Florio, all the Chris Sims breaking down the quarterbacks. I watched it all. I watched the pro day of Fields, the pro day of Lance, the pro day of, all the guys. I knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be the number one pick. I knew Zach Wilson. So with the Bears sitting at, I believe it was 15, I thought it was a dangerous spot to be. Or maybe it was 20. I think it was 20 actually. But it was a tough spot to be. Yeah, it was 20 overall. It was a tough spot to be to get a quarterback, and we were kind of hoping that maybe Mac Jones would fall to us, and the thought was the Bears are going to have to trade up to go get a quarterback. And a lot of people said Dalton was going to be the starter, the plan. I couldn't believe it. So I strongly in my mind, and Ryan Pace being an aggressive GM, I felt like, we're going to get a quarterback in this draft. It might not be a first rounder. It might be a second or third rounder, but we're going to get a rookie quarterback here. Or we're going to aggressively trade up for one of the top 5. And I was worried that if we aggressively trade up into the top 10, which seemed necessary to go get one of these quarterbacks, that we were going to give up way too much to do it. But Nagy shocked all of us. I mean, I felt like they played this perfectly. Somehow, in all my mocks, I never had Justin Fields falling out of the top 10. And somehow he did. He falls out of the top 10, and then you see the Bears trade up to 11, and I was like, holy shit. Like, we played this perfectly. This has got to be a quarterback. And this was the worry then. Is it Mac Jones or is it Justin Fields? And Mac Jones seemed like the Bears pick. If you look at the Bears history, Mac Jones, you go safe, and I wanted Justin Fields. I thought he had the higher upside. I really did. And then we did it, and we drafted Justin Fields, and this brought, the hype to the organization, to the fan base. This was the move that the Bears fans have been waiting for. A quarterback with a very high ceiling, a lot of potential. We all saw him play in some of the biggest games against Alabama and Clemson, and Fields looked like the man, someone that could be a franchise quarterback, a star in this league. Comparisons to Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson and even Michael Vick. So we were damn excited about this, about the prospect of Fields coming in. So then my mindset changed. I said, look, I'm not boycotting the season anymore. I'm going to be following it. And we have a quarterback for the first time in franchise history. And I was excited as fuck. But the issue is that even in the back of my mind, I had this thought. Matt Nagy's still the head coach. This is still the Bears organization that hasn't been able to develop a rookie quarterback talent since fucking Sid Luckman, And so, since the 1940s, and so, like, my concern was that, we find a way to ruin these quarterback prospects, whether it was, I'm old enough to know whether it was Cade McNown, whether it was Rex Grossman, Kyle Orton, whether it was Mitch Trubisky. It doesn't matter. We always find a way to ruin these quarterback prospects. And so, that was in the back of my head. And do I trust Matt Nagy to develop quarterback talent after watching what he did to Trubisky? No, the hell I do not. So the concern was there. All in all, training camp comes, preseason comes, and it shocked me to see that Dalton was getting, all the reps with the first team. And I was like, why is the plan Dalton, 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 instead of getting this rookie prospect who is the future, who is the franchise, getting him the time with the ones? We want to start him sooner than later, right? Or are we talking about Dalton all season long? And this had a lot of people confused, locally and nationally, that like, well, I think that Dalton is the plan for all of 2021. That seems to be the optics by what the Bears are doing, and that they promised him the starting job, so Dalton's going to be the guy. And so Fields was getting kind of pushed to the side, working with the twos, working with the backups, and not getting brought along the way a lot of us fans and local media thought he should be, and even national media. We're like, I don't really agree with what Matt Nagy and the Bears organization are doing here. So we get to week 1. Dalton starts against the Rams, and I predicted it. I said this is going to be a terrible game. Nagy and Dalton is not going to be a good product. And you saw it right away. That week 1 was terrible on primetime national TV. It was terrible. Some fans are going to tell you it wasn't terrible. Some are going to say Dalton moved the ball up and down the field and looked fine. I'm here to tell you he didn't. All he did was underneath stuff, and there was no explosiveness to the offense. There was no, deep threat, no pushing the ball down the field, nothing to scare a defense at all. And the Rams literally gave you all the underneath stuff and then just tackled you short and made you punt or made you settle for field goals. There was no threat there. On top of that, the Bears just look uninspired. As a team, it looked very early on, week 1, like the Bears had already quit on Matt Nagy. And so I was very concerned. And I was like, if the Bears look like this all season long, this is going to be a tough year. Week 2 comes along. I believe week 2 was against the Bengals. And Dalton gets hurt mid-game. And Dalton actually looked decent in that game. Then he gets hurt. Fields takes over. And the Bears defense really stepped up in this game, picked Joe Burrow off on 3 straight pass attempts. Roquan Smith has a pick 6. And the Bears defense, the Bears looked like they were going to run away with the game. The Bengals come back, made it close at the end, but the Bears get a win. So we're 1-1, a very encouraging win. The defense bounces back in a big way from the loss to the Rams. And I'm like, okay, well, if the defense plays like this and is opportunistic and takes the ball away, then maybe there is something here. Maybe this season we can be competitive. And that's, as a Bears fan, I'm not asking for division championships. I'm not asking for contending for Super Bowls right now. I'm just asking to be competitive, and that's all I've been asking since 2017. And we had 1 year of it, and since then we haven't had it. And it's been very frustrating. We've been trying to be patient, but we have a long history of, just ineptitude, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The defense always carries the team, and the offense can never do their part. A couple outliers here or there, the 1 year with Cutler and Trestman, stuff like that. But for the most part, it's never there. So then you go to the Browns game, and Justin Fields gets his first start of his career. This is a very hyped up game for Bears fans. Yeah, you're going up against the Browns. They got a good pass rush. They got a good offense, Baker Mayfield, those running backs. But Justin Fields the future. Justin Fields the guy. Let's see what he can do. There's optimism. And Matt Nagy calls one of the worst game plans I've ever seen in my life. The Texans, the abysmal Texans, the terrible Texans right now, they're even smart enough to chip Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney and keep them off their quarterback. And Garrett had 0 sacks against them. And say, hey, look, we can't trust our guys to block Myles Garrett one-on-one, so let's give the tackle some help, chip him, and keep him off our quarterback. The Bears do not do that, and they allow Myles Garrett to get 4.5 sacks on Justin Fields in his first career start. Justin Fields gets sacked 9 times in his first career start. How the fuck is that acceptable? Like, you got a quarterback prospect the best quarterback prospect we've ever had, and we allow him to get hit like that. Are you guys old enough to remember David Carr on the Texans and the abuse he took? And he seemed like a sure thing, a number 1 overall pick, a future star. And look how the Texans ruined him. And so many people have told me, oh, Justin Fields is too mentally tough, is too skilled. He's unruinable. And I'm just sitting there with my hand in my face like, how can you say that? We're the Chicago Bears. We ruin every quarterback prospect that comes into our building. We are professionals at it. And people say, well, Justin Fields is a way better prospect than Grossman or Trubisky or Cade McNown or any of these guys. And that's revisionist history, man. You might be right, but it's revisionist history because Cade McNown was a hell of a prospect coming out of UCLA. Rex Grossman was a hell of a prospect coming out of Florida. And a lot of people had some very high praise for Trubisky coming out of North Carolina. They all were believed to have a lot of upside and potential to be franchise quarterbacks in this league. And the Bears fucked it up, every single one of them. So don't sit there and tell me that any quarterback is unruinable. I mean, besides maybe Peyton Manning, look at Ryan Leaf's college career and his arm talent and his potential and tell me he was unruinable? And you say, oh, there were signs there. Jamarcus Russell was thought to be a great prospect. And look at how his career turned out. There's countless examples of quarterback prospects that were thought to be a sure thing, thought to be a franchise. You don't get drafted that high if you're not, thought to be the man. And so I don't know what to say on that. I don't understand that type of thinking of saying that a quarterback prospect is unruinable. And the Browns' game plan was unacceptable. And that was a very fireable offense. Nagy should have been fired after that Browns game. He absolutely should have been. That's head coaching malpractice, especially as a play caller. That's give me your play sheet and get the hell out of here. Honestly. And I was that mad at Nagy and Pace after the Packers game last year, and I've been that mad at him multiple times, and this organization just stands pat. Just says, oh, well, we're making money. We don't care. We're going to keep status quo. And so after a game like that against the Browns, we fall to 1-2. And then we follow it up. Who do we play in week 4 to get to 2-2? Is the Lions. And Fields gets a start, and the Bears bounce back and look, a lot better. And then, as people saying, oh, well, it's just the Lions, And, after that, what was that? 2-2. Who else do we beat? But anyways, we got to 3-2 at one point. And then we beat the Raiders. And there was momentum there. And it was like, wow, look at this. We're playing with some momentum. We're 3-2. If we can find a way to beat the hated Packers, we can get to 4-2. And we see issues with Nagy's game plan and Fields struggles against Green Bay. But it was a legit game. It was close. It was, it wasn't as close. The score was closer than the game actually was. The Packers are pretty in control, and the officiating really pissed me off in that game. But Matt Nagy had his flaws in that game as well. And a lot of people are saying, well, Nagy gave up play calling, and it's laser now. But Nagy's got his input in the play calling as well. They both have the headset. They both are communicating with Fields. And I fully believe Nagy is throwing in a play call here or there. And not only that, take away play calling for a second. Let's just say Laser's in full control of the play calling. It's the scheme, man. It's Nagy's offense. It's Nagy's scheme. It's Nagy's plays. And you look at the history since 2019. Look, our O-line doesn't protect, and then our receivers don't get open. And is it the quarterback play? Is it lack of talent on the line? Is it lack of talent on the weapons? And the weapons have changed throughout. And the line has changed. And the quarterbacks have changed. And everything stays the same. The results stay the same. All the signs, every single one of them is pointing at head coach Matt Nagy. So I'm so tired of the excuses. Bears gets a 3-3, and then they come into today's game against the Bucs and just get destroyed in all three phases. It's not even close. It's halftime, and it's 35-3 Tampa Bay. And like I said to start this podcast, I didn't expect it to be super competitive. I didn't expect the Bears to win. But what I wanted to see was, some fight. I wanted to see the offense move the ball up and down the field, and I wanted to see him put up some points. And I wanted to see Fields taking steps in the right direction, Fields progressing and developing. And it's just not there. Fields struggled mightily. There was no chipping. There was no helping out for the tackles on Shaq Barrett or Jason Pierre-Paul. Fields with multiple turnovers, multiple fumbles lost. Matt Nagy, after the Browns game, said, quote, "You almost can't make it up. It's that bad." The Bears put a performance that, worst offensive performance in 40 years. And no shit, Nagy, you can't make it up. You suck. It's that bad. If Bears management and ownership would please hear him out, he's telling you the truth. Nagy's way in over his head, and he needs to be humbled. He needs to be fired. He needs to go back to square one, go back as OC, go back as quarterback coach, and start his career over. Because he's proven it, quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, that he's not a head coach. He's not an offensive guru in this league. And in the meantime, my Bears just struggle over and over again offensively. The Bears are currently 30th in total points scored, only ahead of the Jets and the Texans. And the Bears are averaging 14.4 points per game. I mean, what does that tell you right there? How bad is that? You're in the same conversation as the Jets and the Texans for offensive points scored and averaging less than 15 points per game. How many teams are going to win in the NFL averaging less than 15 points per game? So I just say you got to fire, for the sake of Justin Fields, you have to fire Nagy as soon as possible. You have to fire him. I would fire him tomorrow. I would fire him Monday morning. After the Browns game, after this game, I'm tired of it, man. How many times are we going to see this? Where the Bears are just leave Justin Fields completely out to dry. Let him get his face smashed in all game long by the pass rush and act like, there's nothing we can do. Nagy's not fit for this job. It's the exact same issues, whether it's Trubisky, Foles, Dalton, or Justin Fields. No time in the pocket due to the O-line being able to block the pass rush. No separation from receivers on routes. Justin Fields is currently has the second highest percentage of throws in the tight windows, meaning the receivers aren't getting open. That's scheme. That's play calling. You got to find a way to get your guys open, to make it easy on your quarterback, to make his job, make it simple for him and develop his confidence, get him feeling in a rhythm, get him going. Quotes from the NFL media. Quote, "This staff has done more to hurt a young quarterback than any staff in recent memory." And another guy, "My evaluations on Justin Fields are on pause until Matt Nagy is gone." I mean, what do those quotes tell you? Fire Matt Nagy. It was trending on Twitter today, and I hope it is tomorrow as well. And I hope the Bears ownership and brass get off their lazy asses and finally do something. Finally hear us out. Finally understand the fans are fed up, frustrated. They don't even believe in ownership. They're like, oh no, the Bears aren't going to fire Matt Nagy. They don't have the fucking balls to do it. They won't get off their ass and do anything. They're making money. They don't give a damn about winning. As long as they're collecting their paycheck, they could give a shit about successfully developing the best quarterback prospect we've ever had, about doing anything to try to set this team up for success down the road. They don't give a damn. Why should the Bears fire Pace and Nagy? 5 reasons right here. Accountability. End the charade that this team is a playoff contender. Allow this team to start evaluating players for 2022. The offensive game plans have been criminal. And who else are you going to fire? You can't fire the McCaskies, can you? Can you? You know, I would tear this thing down. If I could, I would tear this thing down completely. I would get new ownership because they've shown they're incompetent. I would fire Ted Phillips. I'd fire Ryan Pace, and I'd fire Matt Nagy. Whole new staff, whole new, the guys running the football operation, and whole new ownership, and fix this crap that's been going on in Chicago for far too long. So I'm pissed, man. I don't know what else to say. I'm laying it out for you right here, going over the years. But Matt Nagy he's got to go. He sucks. Fire Matt Nagy, promote Mike Pettin to interim head coach, give Bill Lazor full control over the offensive game plan and the play calling, and let's see what they can do. But Nagy's got to go. How many times are we going to have this type of performance on Sunday where the analysts, the guys calling the game, just make fun of the organization the entire day? How this team just is trash. This team can't do anything right. Look at this young prospect quarterback and laugh about how we're going to ruin another franchise quarterback. I'm at a loss of words. At some point, I don't know what else to say. Fire Matt Nagy tomorrow. If not, then this ownership, this franchise doesn't give a damn about winning. They don't give a damn about the future. They don't give a damn about developing Justin Fields. As long as you are buying their tickets, as long as you are buying their gear, they could give a shit else. So I'm pissed. I'm bitter. I'm frustrated. I'm at a loss of words. I've been asking for Matt Nagy to be fired since after the 2019 season. I was made fun of. I was called a truther. I was called what are you even looking at? You obviously don't know quarterback talent. You obviously, look at Nagy scheming these receivers open constantly, but the quarterback can't hit them. The quarterback can't hit a deep ball. Well, does Fields have the same issues? Did Nick Foles have the same issues? Did Andy Dalton? Because same issues. New quarterback, same issues. New quarterback, same issues. So it's either I don't know what I'm talking about, or you don't know what you're talking about, or Nagy is trash all around, and it's a combination of it all. So I don't know what else to say. I feel like I've been patient. I've allowed it to work out in front of me, throughout the years, and I each step that happens, I feel vilified. I feel like it shows I've been known what I'm talking about, but some people still don't want to hear me out. And the people that are going to sit here and say that Justin Fields is unruinable, be careful what you say, man. Like, we all think this guy is the savior. We all think this guy is the best thing we've ever had. Why the fuck would you say something like that? Like, he is very ruinable. And if you don't do everything in your power to help him and put him in position to succeed, you're going to ruin him. Mark my words. And I don't want to be right. And even if, go with me here for a second, even if Justin Fields is that good and that mentally strong that he is unruinable, why the hell would you purposefully put him through more time with Matt Nagy? More game plans like today. More opportunities to get hit and hit and hit and get forced fumbles and interceptions and have that body language and the look like he had on the sideline. Like, I don't know what to do. How many times do you want him to look like that and test if he's ruinable or not when there's plenty of other people in this league that can come in and put him in a much better position to succeed? Cut ties with Matt Nagy tomorrow, and let's finally move on as an organization in the right direction. Because the longer we keep Matt Nagy, the longer we're just sitting here spinning the wheel, doing the same shit over and over again, and coming on here Sunday night, Monday morning saying, what the fuck happened? This is unacceptable. And the circle keeps on going. So, I want change for the better. I don't know about you guys. Demand it. Keep tweeting #FireNagy. Keep doing whatever we can do until he's out of town, because in my opinion, I started podcasting in 2017 and was following this team super closely since then. And my team, in my mind, every sign points to the bald-headed play caller, bald-headed offensive guru, Matt Nagy, is the reason for the Bears' offensive issues. If I'm wrong later on down the road, feel free to, I'll take the blame. I'll say I was wrong. But there's better guys. Looking at the potential replacements for this offseason, I mean, the highest on my list is Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. That's who I want. You look at what he and the Bills have done with developing Josh Allen, and I say, damn, that guy can develop quarterback talent. Josh Allen might be one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league right now. He might be on pace for MVP season. Let's get that guy. Also on the list is Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, although the way Mahomes has been playing recently, I don't know. And, he's got some other baggage that comes along with that. And he comes from the same offense, as Matt Nagy, the same Andy Reid coaching tree. So do we want that? Kellen Moore, the Cowboys offensive coordinator, who's shown some major flashes over there in Dallas. I don't want him as head coach. To me, he's one of those guys that's a coordinator only, not a leader of men, not a locker room culture guy. He's just a play caller. So let's not give him a head coaching job, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Byron Leftwich, another guy I would hold off on. I'm a big fan of Byron Leftwich, but just because he's had success in Bruce Arians' offense with Tom Brady, let's not go crazy. I would say let's give Byron Leftwich a couple more years of doing this before we give him a head coaching job. And I don't want the Bears to be his first stop. I want a proven guy. And Brian Daboll, I don't know if he necessarily is. But looking at proven guys, someone that I think is very likely, if we're going to make a head coaching change, a name to really watch, a guy that's proven that he can develop quarterback talent in a big way before, look out for Jim Harbaugh. A lot of you might not want to hear that, but he's had success in the NFL before with the Niners. He's had success at multiple stops in college, with Stanford, I believe with San Diego State. He's a former Bears quarterback. This seems like a Bears type of hire, a former Bear. He's had success developing Andrew Luck. He's had success with Colin Kaepernick. Let's not forget, it's not just Colin Kaepernick. He got the most out of Alex Smith. He had Alex Smith playing at an MVP level at times there in San Francisco. And pretty much Alex Smith took him to the NFC Championship game. So, and Fields has similar skill set with Kaepernick, the ability to use his legs, the strong arm, ability to make some crazy plays. So I don't think Harbaugh's, that terrible of an option. It seems like a Bears type of hire. And we'll see what happens with Harbaugh in Michigan. He's got some big games coming up against Michigan State on Saturday. He's got Penn State, Ohio State. They're undefeated right now, Michigan is, but they need to stay undefeated in order for him to keep his job. If they lose 2 or 3 here down the stretch, I could easily see Jim Harbaugh fired. Michigan fans, the people in the know, say it's unlikely for him to be fired. But if he loses to little brother Michigan State and loses to Ohio State again, and maybe even Penn State or Maryland or one of these guys, he could easily be fired. If it's 2 or 3 losses here in the last 5, he could easily be fired. So let's keep an eye on that. I think Harbaugh is a name to keep an eye on as the next Bears head coach. He's a proven guy and proven in the NFL, not just a college guy. So we'll see on that. He certainly, I think, would be better than Matt Nagy. So that's going to do it for this rant and this episode of why the Bears should fire Matt Nagy. Ryan Pace, if you're going to fire Nagy, fire Pace too. I think the only thing that is keeping Pace afloat is the drafting of Justin Fields. That's, his best move, I think, so far. But, I would be fine with moving on from Pace. Like I said, I would move on from the whole thing. Get Ted Phillips out of there. If you can, sell the team. But, I don't really have much more to say. I'm pissed. I'm frustrated. Today was, I get a lot more fun I cover the entire league, and I get a lot more fun out of watching the rest of the NFL than I do watching the Bears here recently. So I'm tired of that. I love the Bears. I want to watch more of the Bears and have a good time on Sunday instead of being miserable every week. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Put hashtag Fire Nagy all over Twitter and Facebook. Get that trending, and let's get Nagy out of town and get Fields the best, opportunity to be successful with this organization. So appreciate the support, guys. Got a lot of interviews on deck, so stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button, and have a great week, guys. Peace out.